The Ethiopian Empire. The empire of Ethiopia as a whole may be divided into three distinct periods. At least we take the occasion to do so for the convenience of its history. The Adamic Period is the one that is briefly described in chapter 2 under title Prehistoric Ethiopia, or the Empire of the Atlanteans. Ethiopian chronology says that Aram, Ori, the 35th son of Adam, ascended the throne of Ethiopia in the year of the world 970. Before Christ, 4,470 years, that 21 kings had ascended the throne before the flood. But there is another record of the long list of kings, according to Ethiopian historians, that was probably more accurate than this, but was carried to Egypt when the Ethiopian kings ruled that country, and was destroyed when her power was overthrown. The Ethiopians, as I have already stated, were the founders of the Egyptian Empire and were the most powerful people of the ancient world. Broughton's History of Ancient People, page 31, says, according to progressive theory, the earth may have been first peopled by men black in color. If so, the blacks reached their cultural climax in ancient times. However, how much Egypt, India, and southern Europe owed to them may never be known. He further states on page 31, of the 15,000 years of the world existence, 9,000 was spent under black domination. The Atlantean Empire, Atlantean, or the Adamic dynasty, lasted until the flood and was succeeded by the Adamic Period. The dynasty of Ham. This dynasty had its beginning about 2,635 years BC. The direct line of the Hamitic dynasty lasted 650 years, and 25 kings are said to have reigned in succession during that period. While it is said that Ham was the ancestor of the black race, this is true only in the same sense that George Washington was the father of his country. This does not make Washington the ancestor of the white Americans, although Washington was a white man. Ham was not the father of the black race. The Bible does not say so, but Ham was a black king and father of his country. The black race had a background of 25,000 years of culture before Ham ascended the throne. This is according to prehistoric records dating back to the Old Stone Age. So did the name Cush, the son of Ham, become a symbol of nationality and has been converted to mean Ethiopia or Negro. But he also was a great king in those remote times. It appears that King Ham's reign was more or less confined to the continent of Africa, as the scripture refers to Africa as the land of Ham. But the Cushite Empire seems to have held its sway in Africa and extended its sway over the greater part of Asia. Josephus' History of the Jews, Book 1, page 56, William Whiston translation, speaks of Cush as a king when he says, time has not hurt the name of Cush for the Ethiopians over whom he reigned, or even to this day, both by themselves and all men in Asia called Cushites. The Hindu-Kush mountain in Asia derived its traditional name from King Cush. The term Kush, K-U-S-H, means black nation, but the ancient writers differentiated the name between the king and the people. The Ethiopian or Cushite kings were called the royal son of Cush, and his black subjects Cushites. That's C-U-S-H-I-T-E-S. The royal son of Cush was K-U-S-H. King Cushite. The king was looked on as the father of his country. The most outstanding dynasties of the Egyptian Empire were 12th, 18th, 19th, and 25th, which were almost Ethiopian or Cushite reign exclusive. H.R. Hall's Ancient History of the Near East, page 271, says, all we know of the Cushites, K-U-S-H-I-T-E-S, and then Cushites, C-U-S-H-I-T-E-S, of the 12th dynasty, were Negroes in the 18th dynasty from the latter period. Cush, K-U-S-H, was in full and peaceful control of the Egyptians. King Nimrod, the royal son, Cush, C-U-S-H, the founder of the Babylonian Empire, built the city of Babylon and Nineveh, whose hanging gardens and swinging palaces were reckoned among the 7 wonders of the world. The last and one of the most prominent rulers of the Hamitic dynasty was known as Makita, the Queen of Sheba in the Bible. This venerated queen was a royal guest at the temple and palace of King Solomon. She came with a long, brilliant train of followers, bringing gifts and tribute to the Jewish king. Ethiopian history and reliable tradition say that the Queen of Sheba became the mother of a child by Solomon, whom she named Menelik, which meant the son of a wise man. It is said when the prince was 18 years old, his mother sent him to his father to be educated at Jerusalem and to have the influence and training of his wise father. It is said that Prince Menelik became so much inspired by his father's system of government that he stole the Ark of the Covenant, which contained the 10 Commandments, and carried them to Ethiopia. The House of Solomon. Menelik I, the son of the Queen of Sheba, marked the beginning of the Judean line, or the House of Solomon, which had ruled the nation for more than 3,000 years. I would like to state here frankly that King Solomon's line does not change the race or nationality of the Ethiopian kings, as some writers have tried to make it appear when they speak of the Jewish features of King Selassie. But King Solomon was a black man, and his mother was a Canaanite woman, an Asiatic Ethiopian. In the Songs of Solomon, chapter 1, verses 5 and 6, Solomon says, I am black but comely. Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun has looked upon me. It is said that King Menelik first introduced the Jewish religion in Ethiopia, and that the original Ark of the Covenant still remains in the Ethiopian church at Axum, the ancient capital of Ethiopia in the days of the Queen of Sheba. Ethiopia remained a powerful state after losing its prestige of a great empire up to the period of the Middle Ages, when it was divided into several semi-independent states governed by a feudal system. Although the strifes existed between the powerful races, often called civil and eternal conflict, these conditions and her struggle for existence and independence from the outside world seriously affected the progress of Ethiopia. She repelled the Mohammedan invasion with only the aid of 500 Portuguese soldiers. She was later overrun by the warlike Gali tribes from the south, and under the leadership of her noble king, His Majesty's Amanda, A-M-A-D-A, Zion, defeated the mighty warlords of the kingdom Adel, a Negro state of Arabian culture in East Africa. During the Middle Ages, she fought against the encroachment of both Mohammedans and pagans alike. But during the later years in Ethiopian history, she has had to battle with overwhelming odds against the so-called Christian powers, who were a more formidable foe and who had bigger and better guns and more destructive engines of war, and were by far more brutal and ruthless in their attacks. This has much to do with the handicaps which have constantly encountered its people through the centuries. But she was and is still the Lion of God, and she has been able to survive the shock of 50 centuries After the fall of the old Atlantean Empire, which existed many thousand years before the flood. During the Dark Ages, she slept in the bed of a feudal state, Feudal, and had her first real awakening under the leadership of King Theodore, a man of extraordinary character. He was born a poor boy and was supposed to be the nephew of a small chieftain. Theodore, as a young man, organized a small party of men, seized large tracts of territory, defeated the Egyptian attack on the country, conquered his father-in-law in battle, and overrun the rest of the country. He then captured the son of Hali, Melikat, Sahala Marian, who was afterwards known as Menelik II, and Theodore's government was soon recognized by Great Britain and other powers. Theodore was indeed a great king. In fact, he made himself a king by his own fearless achievements. However, the latter part of his reign was met with a gloomy defeat and war with Great Britain. It is said that Theodore sent an ambassador to the court of St. James and that Queen Victoria refused to recognize him. And Theodore retaliated by imprisoning the British missionaries in Ethiopia. The British government sent out an expedition under the command of Lord Napier, and the British encountered the Ethiopians in battle at the strong fortress of Magdala. This battle resulted in the defeat of the Ethiopians, and King Theodore committed suicide. After the release of the missionaries, the British troops made no further advances. The army officials took King Theodore's son, Crown Prince Alemanyu, aged 7, and brought him to England to Queen Victoria. At the age of 16, the prince was sent to India to be educated and trained in Eastern custom and tradition, and later he returned to England to take a postgraduate course in a British university. The prince returned to England in 1871 and died of pneumonia in Leeds, capital Leeds, England, on November 14, 1879. Queen Victoria ordered his burial to be at Windsor Chapel. King Theodore was succeeded by King John, but his reign was brief. He proclaimed himself as king of Sheba and Gojam, but he was soon killed in battle while fighting the dervishes. He was succeeded by Menelik II, who was the greatest Ethiopian king since the days of Taharqa. Menelik ascended the throne of Ethiopia with drawn sword. The former King John had made a treaty with Italy known as the Treaty of Ucciali, capital Ucciali, which had given Italy the right of protectorate over Ethiopia. But Menelik balked at this agreement and war was declared. The far-famed Battle of Adorwa decided the issue, and the Italian army met with a disastrous defeat. Menelik then united the province of Ethiopia into a consolidated empire, and he became the Bismarck of Africa, and European powers looked upon this victory with much concern. Menelik was succeeded by his grandson, Liu Yasu, Yassu. We shall deal with Liu Yasu's notorious reign as regent ruler, his Mohammedan influence and Pan-African dream in chapter 10. The national church. Judaism was introduced into Ethiopia by King Solomon's son Menelik I. Christianity was carried there by the Ethiopian eunuch, who was converted and baptized by St. Philip, who met the Ethiopian nobleman while returning from Jerusalem, where he had gone to worship. The Ethiopians still retain a Christian church in Jerusalem. Some writers claim that the gospel was carried to Ethiopia by St. Matthew the Apostle. During the 4th century after Christ, Ethiopia accepted Christianity as a national religion, and her kings became the defenders of the faith. Frumentius, the first bishop, was consecrated by Athanasius, the African patriarch of Alexandria, Egypt. The national church of Ethiopia is Orthodox Catholic, the same as that of Greece. The Bible was first translated into the Ethiopian language 500 AD. There are 81 books in their Bible, 46 books in the Old Testament, and 35 books in the New Testament. The pictures of the Virgin Mary, the infant Savior, John the Baptist, and the angels are painted black with woolly hair. The Ethiopian doctrine of Christ during the early stage of Christianity in 450 AD was condemned by the Council of Chalcedon because the Ethiopians believed only in the one nature of Christ. They rejected the doctrine that he was both God and man. This doctrine was looked upon as heresy and was not accepted by the church at Alexander, but this controversy was settled by the good influence of Ethiopia's noblest saint, King Tekla, Tekla Hamout, capital Hamout, who agreed to modify the doctrine of Ethiopia in accordance with the Coptic Church of Egypt and Greece in order to connect the fellowship of Ethiopia with the Orthodox churches of the world. Ethiopia today is a Christian nation, and His Majesty Haile Selassie is the defender of the faith, the elect of God, and the power of the Trinity.